even after spending over 100 hours with the game and playing every single beta, there are still things in the First Descendant which I'm only discovering now, or little habits which I struggle to remind myself of, and I'm starting to do that now. So I wanted to share some of this with you guys. Let this be a tips video, if you will. And we're going to start right off with probably one of the easier ones. And that is, we have Anais, who is of course our researcher, and this is essentially where we unlock a lot of stuff. So always be sure that you are cooking something with Anais. A lot of the times, a lot of the recipes that you're doing will have a 4-hour, 8-hour, in the case of characters, even longer hours, you know, sort of like cooldown time as it's busy doing the research and then eventually giving you the item. But what really sucks in the game is needing a specific upgrade material or a specific resource that you want to do to maybe empower a gun or swap some stats around or something like that, only to realize that the stuff's not available and now you got to wait for a while. So always be cooking something in the research, especially when you're logging off for the night. But also if you're sitting down for like a play session, you know you're going to be doing about 2, 3, 4 hours. Go ahead and throw some stuff in here, and as soon as they're done, do this again. You will be replenishing this material in any case by just playing, by just dismantling things, by just picking up stuff in the environment. And there's really no sort of like, you know, potential boost to hoarding it. It absolutely should be spent, so absolutely be researching at all times. Tip number 2. Let me just go to this footage here. Everybody's favorite gameplay mechanic in this game is, of course, whenever you attack a boss or something like that, and you essentially deplete their life bar and they go into like an invulnerability phase, and you have these balls above them that you have to destroy. Now, it's come to my attention that a lot of people don't know that there's actually different mechanics to this, and oftentimes you have to try and figure out which one of it is, because that will change your level of attack or exactly how you approach this. That's because most people assume the balls come out, you just shoot them all and then they go away. But there's actually a couple of different variants of this. The first one being you just shoot all the balls and they go away. So that's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Then there's also a variant where you essentially have to watch the order in which the balls come out, and you have to shoot that order. Because if you don't, and you kill them in the wrong order, they all come back. This is arguably the most fucking frustrating one, but one that players often fail on, because most guys will either shoot their own orb and kind of like down it, or they won't look at the order and it'll just keep respawning the whole time. And I've literally been stuck on bosses for like hours, having people, well, maybe not hours is a little bit fucking hectic, but for a long time, as players are constantly shooting the wrong balls. So absolutely check this out. Balls matter. And then last but not least, there you also get a variant of this where the balls have different situations where they go invulnerable, so you also have to look out for that. So as soon as you don't see your bullets doing any damage, switch to another ball. And then last but not least, there's a fourth variant as well, where if you don't kill them fast enough in a row, they will actually also start coming back one at a time. So these are the ones that you basically AoE down. But lots of different kinds of balls, but balls absolutely matter. Tip number 3 is actually something that I didn't expect this game to have, but is super useful. And we all know that this game has a ton of things to unlock, a ton of materials to farm, a ton of different things that you need to be collecting from all over the world. And honestly, when you're starting out, it could be super overwhelming, because you're trying to keep track of, okay, I need to go here to get this material, and then I need to go here to get that. And it's just like, it's a mess. But luckily, the developer has included a database for us that we can use that not only tells you every single item in the game and where to find it, but actually lets you ping those things as well and show you in the world exactly where you need to go. So specifically on the PC, on keyboard and mouse, you press J on your keyboard to get to this menu here. I don't know what it is on console, I'm fucking sorry, but basically you need to get to this menu here. I think you can just press whatever your map key is, and then the tab that you're looking for is Access Info. Now this is every single item in the game. So let's say, for example, you wanted to know how to get the mods which are exclusively for Bunny, okay? So you could go to Module, and in the search you could put in Bunny. Now this is going to tell you every single one of the mods which only work for Bunny as a Descendant. And now let's say, for example, you look at these, you're like, God damn, I need to get me that high voltage. That shit looks good. I spent the money on Ultimate Bunny. I want to know where I can find this Transcendent mod. You can hover your mouse over it, and you can press F once again on the keyboard or whatever it is on console, and it's going to tell you exactly who you need to kill to be able to get this. So I need to go on hard, and I need to go fight the Pyromaniac, which is a Void Intercept boss, and I'm going to be able to get that. But let's say, for example, you didn't want to do that. Let's say you just wanted to look at all of the ultimate mods because you're missing a whole bunch of them, like fucking me, as you can see here. And more specifically, you're looking for the HP. I really want this mod, HP Collector. I still don't fucking have it. So I can, again, do the same thing. I can go to acquisition info, and now I can see there's actually a fuck ton of places that I can get this mod from. But let's say, for example, I'm like, okay, cool. I have my heart set on. I want to go to Vespers, and I want to do one of these hard missions. Then the only thing you need to do is just click on that, and it's actually going to show you on the map exactly which mission it is. So you don't have to go scrolling to the map or any fucking weird shit. It's right there. Boom, there's HP Collector, and it tells you the percentage, and you're good to go. Tip number 4 is actually all about stats and how important it is to understand some of the mechanics that run in the background of this game, because some of the things that you read on modules and some of the things that you read in the stats can be a little bit misleading. Crit is a really good example. So one of the things about crit, we are taught in these games that crit is like the best stat to ever go for. And generally speaking, that is true. Crit is always a good stat, especially if you couple it with crit damage, because when you do crit, you're going to deal insane damage. Fucking yeehaw, let's go. But there's an issue. Specifically, like if we go look at like my setup for the tamer over here, right? Now, generally speaking, you are going to customize your weapons, either that you're going to be focusing on dealing damage to weak points, or you're going to be focusing on dealing a specific kind of elemental damage, or you're going to be focusing on dealing crit damage and then have a high crit chance and high crit damage. Or you'll try to combine those in some way and build like a really fucking sick weapon. But when we look at Better Insight here, this mod, it mentions that firearm critical hit rate plus 39%. That is, my critical chance increases by 39%. That sounds fucking insane, and you might read this and go, wow, so I'm actually putting 39% crit on top of this machine gun, which means that if I have a little bit of other crit still on the gun, or I get it from other sources, I can get to like 50% crit, 60% crit easily. Unfortunately, that's not true. When we look at the actual weapon stats, and I can do this by pressing tab, and hopefully my fucking head isn't too close in the way, actually it looks to be just fine, we can see that the weapon itself, it has a firearm critical hit rate, and this is currently on 15%. So actually how crit works, and most stats in the game work this way, is that it is actually based off of the base value of the item that you are applying the mod to, which in a way makes sense, but you might not understand it that way. So the base value, the crit value for an LM, for a machine gun, is 10%. So this increase in crit here amongst the other mods that I'm also adding on is actually giving you that percentage, which is like 39% of 10%, and then adding it on there. And that's why I'm only getting to 15%. So this is super important to know when you are building your guns. Furthermore, you should also understand that different weapons platforms have different crit rates. So for example, if you wanted to build crit on a rocket launcher, and this is now, my face is hidden behind it, which is, terrible. But I can do this and you can maybe see it. Yeah, behind my head here, you can see firearm critical hit rate. And then it says 1%. Like, launchers have a base crit chance of 1%. So it makes absolutely no sense for you to put any crit onto a launcher, because you're gonna be putting on a percentage of 1% onto it, which is such a waste that it just makes no sense. It's better to go weak point or elemental or something like that. So you do need to be checking this out. Then there are, of course, weapons which are really good for crit. Like, for example, if we check out something like the Thunder Cage, the submachine gun, submachine guns are really good. They have fairly high crit hit rates straight off the rip. So do handguns and so on. So inspect your weapons to see what their base stats are, and that can oftentimes give you the idea of what's better to put into the weapon from a mod perspective to actually get the most juice out of that weapon. Staying on the topic of weapons, we can go ahead and talk about tip number, I guess this is 5. So when it comes to leveling your weapon proficiency, this is of course super important. So when we look at here, we can see my Thunder Cage's proficiency level 40, and that is because I have used this gun a lot, and every time you kill something in the game, you get some weapon proficiency. All right. and this unlocks further mod capacity for your weapon. And once you hit maximum proficiency, you can of course use one of these lovely little crystallization catalysts to reset the proficiency down to 1, but then allow you to mark one of these cells as a manufacturer, as a mod manufacturer, which halves the cost of that mod. Therefore it gives you more mod power back, and you can essentially build up the quality of the weapon. Think of it as prestige levels essentially of a weapon and also of a character, because you can also do this with Descendants. Now, what is super important about weapon levels that you should remember is whichever gun is out that you are carrying in your hands is going to get the maximum amount of proficiency XP when you kill something. So you're going to be getting 100% of the XP. But what is also very cool is the other two weapons which you are carrying on your body but which aren't in your hands are actually also still getting 20% of the XP. So they're not dead in the water. You don't have to worry about that. So if you want to slowly but surely level some other guns up over time, as you always use the Thunder Cage, you could just put those in slot number 2 and 3, and they're going to slowly but surely accumulate some XP as well. Last but not least, what's also super important is you don't just get weapon experience, or rather weapon proficiency, by shooting with that gun. You also get it by killing stuff just in general, and it's the same amount. So meaning, like, if you're playing Bunny and you're running around electrocuting everything and you're not firing a single bullet, you are still getting the same amount of XP into your weapons as you would if you were shooting them. So don't feel that you're losing out on weapon proficiency by not using your guns. The amount is exactly the same. So build a mage build, just set shit on fire, electrocute everything, don't shoot your gun once, you're still going to get the same amount of proficiency. Lastly, and for my 6th tip, let's talk a little bit about reactors. Again, these sorts of games, they always teach us that we should be equipping legendary stuff. We should be looking at, you know, whatever has like the highest rarity, and that generally speaking is going to be the best thing for us in a particular slot. But that's not necessarily true when it comes to reactors. And the first, I would say, main reason why this is the case is because when we look at the difference between ultimate reactors and rare reactors, there's one very big thing that differs between them. First of all, your optimization condition, as you can see it there, basically mentions that you should be having a specific weapon, right? And it mentions mounting on ultimate reactors. Whereas when we look at rare reactors, it says a specific weapon class, and then it says class equipped. Now, this is a fundamental difference between the way that these two items work. The legendary, or rather the ultimate reactors, expect you to have the weapon in your hand to get this 160% bonus there, which is pretty much the whole reason why you have the reactor in the first place, because that's a huge boost to damage, right? Whereas if you are having, let's say for example, you are using this weapon that I'm using right now, the Thunder Cage, but you're actually running around with a machine gun or something like that, then if you then are carrying the machine gun and you have this ultimate reactor on, it is going to default to the 100% one because you're not actually carrying that. All right. Whereas the rare reactors work a little bit different because it says class equipped. So as long as I have the Thunder Cage somewhere in my fucking, you know, gun inventory in slot 3 or something, and I'm running around with the rocket launcher, I'm still going to get the 140% here. So as an example, let me show you that just so that I'm, you know, like I'm not confusing anybody else. So let me just quickly go here. Boom. Okay. So basically, this is super important depending on how you run your loadouts, and it is the major differing factor between the two. It's of course beneficial to you if you are, in the case of Bunny, she's again a really good example for this. So let me just show you what I mean. So if I switch to my machine gun here, you're going to see that I'm still getting the benefit of this. Even though it says submachine gun class equipped, it shows 140 and I'm still getting the benefit because I'm holding a machine gun, but my fucking Thunder Cage is in my other slot. So goody gumdrops. Here you can see that now, because I've unequipped the Thunder Cage, now my Tingling Phase Reactor is giving me the missed skill power value, the 100%, because even though I have Thunder Cage in my fucking, my sack, and I'm carrying it in my 3rd slot, I have the machine gun equipped, and therefore I'm not getting it. So I hope that this kind of like makes sense. So this is important for you to bear in mind if you are if you are looking at the difference of which one of the two is better. If you are going to always be running a specific weapon, and that weapon happens to be the Thunder Cage or Greg's reversed flate or a specific kind of weapon, then you can basically look at, and this has to be a legendary of course, then you can look at using ultimates, because you're going to get the 160% plus you're actually going to be able to upgrade this reactor as well. Or if you like to swap around between weapons, but you always have a slot with the particular weapon that's required by the reactor in it, then rather use a rare. You are going to be losing 20%, because as you can see, ultimates have 160 and rares have 140, but you are going to be able to make up for that, hopefully with the substats that you have below, and possibly because you have 2 good skill power boost ratios here, like in the case of this one that I have here. So if I'm running around with a machine gun, this rare reactor is by far better than this one over here. I lose a lot of DPS if I switch to this one. However, if I'm using the Thunder Cage, then I absolutely need to be equipping this one. So there's another reason for you to basically carry around multiple items, because it might be different, you know, use cases for which one to use. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Let me know in the comments down below if you found this information interesting in any way, if you'd like future videos like this with some additional tips. I have like a whole page full of shit that I've written down. It would just make the video super long, so maybe we can have like a part 2 and a part 3 and so on. Absolutely feel free to also let me know in the comments any tips that you have for other players, for myself. We can hive mind and put this together. Of course, I'll give you credit in the video. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this in any way, do consider subbing to the channel. I've got a ton more First Descendant content coming out in the coming days, and it really does help us with the algorithm. Other than that, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Till next video, fucking cheers.